tēnā koutou katoa. Cool. So, yeah, just to welcome you all again. And as Gail said, I'm Clare Ward, I'm the Chief Executive of Superu. And we've been operating as Superu since December last year, as formerly the Families Commission. Before I get started, I've been asked to let you know that we have created a hashtag for today, which is not really my language, and it's hashtag evidence to action. So if you're making any posts on social media today, please use that. And as we said earlier, the focus of today's conference is about how you really engaging with that topic about how do we know we're making a difference on the ground. And to do that, we've brought a whole range of different people together into this room. So practitioners, policy developers and funders, because we're all part of that system that actually makes a difference. And in my brief session today, and I'm not going to talk for long because I know we want to get to Louise, I'll give you a little bit of context on today's conference, talking about the role of Superu in increasing the use of evidence in the social sector. But to start with, I always like to put this diagram up at the start because I think it's really important that we remind ourselves why we're all here. And it's not because we do research, and it's not because we make funding decisions, and it's not because we deliver services. It's because it's about our children and our families, our communities and our whānau. And we all want to make a difference for these people and communities. And whilst many families and whānau are doing well, others aren't doing as well. And helping to improve outcomes for those families and children is complex, and I don't think we should, we all know that. Without going into too much detail, the issues that the families and whānau we're talking about face are intergenerational, multidimensional. They can't be addressed by any one of us alone. We have to work together to think about the family as a whole. And the words "what works" very common these days, but actually understanding what works in the social sector is complex as well, as I'm sure you all know in this room. And attributing change to any one intervention or activity can be really difficult, and so that is part of the challenge that we face as a sector. But I don't think that means we don't do it. It means we need to focus on using the data we've got and the people we've got to help us try and understand the difference we're making. As in any sector, we've got limited resources, both financial and non-financial resources. So it is really important that we use those resources where they can have the greatest impact. And as the Minister said, the government is committed to the investment approach, which is really about understanding it's investing early for better results in the long term. And when I think about that approach, it really requires all of us, whether we're making policy, funding services, delivering services, to use evidence to understand the problem, to understand where to intervene and how to intervene, to understand what works, what doesn't, and actually to understand how we're going. And that, I see it as quite an evidence-heavy approach, which is why we're all here today. And as part of its approach, the government has set up a number of initiatives in recent years to really help grow the evidence base and to get that evidence used. And Superu is one of those initiatives. And our purpose is to increase the use of evidence by decision makers across the social sector, so that through those they can make better decisions that affect the lives of children, families and community. We don't work with individual families, we don't create policy, and we don't deliver programs, but what we do is try and influence those people who do. And that purpose, I think, reflects the belief that the best decisions are made when they are informed by evidence. So obviously that is a huge undertaking for a small organisation. So we've had to think carefully about our role and how we give effect to that. And this next diagram is it's how we sort of thought about the sector in order to help us think about what we do. So up at the top we've got families and whānau. Now obviously there's a whole range of impacts on families and whānau that have nothing to do with Superu, that impact their wellbeing and outcomes. But in terms of our thinking, there's of relevance to us are the organisations in the light blue box, social sector organisations inside government and outside government, who are developing policy, making funding decisions, delivering services that impact on families and communities and whānau. And then there's the organisations in the pink box, some of whom are in this room, And they are producing evidence about the social sector, the issues we face, what works, what doesn't. They can be in academia, they can be in government, they can be in non-government. And in the dark blue box at the bottom are the people who influence both of those other boxes. You know, it's people who've got funding, compliance activities, etc. And as we've seen, there is a growing demand for people to use evidence. But actually, it doesn't always happen for a range of reasons, and in part is because the different boxes don't fully understand each other and sort of talk past each other to some degree or other. So you can hear academics will often say that policymakers don't take account of the evidence. Policymakers may argue that the evidence, they can't find the evidence, or it isn't relevant to their needs, or it's not understandable. Practitioners often feel that their evidence isn't adequately incorporated into the decision making, and actually the linkages between government and the external world are sometimes weaker than they need to be. And so we need a broker, essentially, somebody who can help bridge that gap, and that's where Superu comes in. Now, we're not going to solve all those problems, but in a sense we're operating in that space between the different players. And mechanisms like this conference can help bridge the gap between those people in the pink who are producing social science evidence and those in the light blue who could or should be using it. So with that context in mind, Superu's built a strategy around both growing the evidence base, but also, really importantly, facilitating its use. And this little model here is our version of an evidence to action model that underpins our strategy, and it involves us, without going into too much detail about establishing social science research and evaluation needs and priorities, creating evidence primarily through commissioning work if new work is needed, but also, really importantly, as we move down here, is actually translating and disseminating that evidence in ways that people can use and understand. Making it easier to access, easier to understand, connecting decision makers with the evidence and those who produce it, which is part of something like today. I mean, I think actually you can read stuff, can't you, and you take something in, but actually talking to the person who knows about the information is so much more valuable very often. And also we also actively support people to use evidence in their work, and we're working with a number of people in this room. So I could go on at length about all the wonderful things we've done, but I won't. But we are making key progress in a number of areas. So in terms of growing the evidence about what works, in terms of some of the evaluations that we've done around these mental health packages, one example, but also our what works synthesis. Which are these orange ones here, which is where we're trying to bring all the evidence together about a topic, about what do we know about this topic, what do we know what works, about what works to address that, what do we know, what don't we know, what do we need to know next. And we've done a number of those around parenting, family violence and alcohol, the children of prisoners, the children of gangs, so that sort of thing. We're also making evidence easier to find, so we've developed a new hub, which we can give you a link to, and that is actually just bringing all government-funded social research together. So we've currently got social development, health, education, justice on there, and we're adding other ones as well. We're making good progress around family and whānau wellbeing, which is really helping us to understand what does it take to build the well-being of families and whānau. So our new family and whānau status report is out very soon. And finally, in supporting the use of evidence, we're finding that our advice and expertise is being increasingly sought, and I think that is how we can make a big difference, as well as a number of events and seminars like this, and a number of things we do to build capability. And you will see some of our products around at morning and afternoon tea, and please feel free to take those away with you. So to finish off, I believe that using evidence is a way of viewing the world, and it requires all of us to change our culture and our capability in order to do that. The numbers here today are a testament, I think, to that we do want to do that, and there is a huge desire to do that. But we all face face challenges in making that happen that I've talked a little bit about today. And actually events like today offer us the chance to explore how we can overcome those challenges, how other people have done it, and to talk to people in similar situations. So I hope that this conference inspires you and that everybody gets something out of it that they think, I can do that and I'm going to start tomorrow. For me, that would be a real success.